Rosalind Carter said it first, and she said it best. There are only four kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those that will need caregivers. Relentless, commonly defined as oppressively constant, determined, showing no abatement of severity, intensity, strength, or pace. I believe relentless is an ethos. You're not stopping until you get what you want. You're not taking no for an answer. No obstacle will deter you from your goals. Relentless mentality is where we get to tap into the mindset of change agents, leaders, and icons. My hope is that their stories will inspire and motivate others to transform their mentality in their profession, their personal life, and ultimately their communities. So remember, when it's tough, will you give up or will you be relentless? I'm happy to introduce Tom Egan, President and CEO of Foundation for Senior Living, known as FSL. Tom, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
As President and CEO of FSL, Tom provides overall executive leadership, oversees the day-to-day operations, provides fiduciary oversight, and is actively involved in fund development. Tom promotes greater awareness of FSL within the community and guides the vision and strategic direction for FSL. He has 20 years of experience in nonprofit organizations, including 6 years of nonprofit management experience, and he holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, which I have used with him before. But you know, I think we'll talk about FSL because a lot of people, I think, are going to be interested in learning more about FSL.
Yeah.
But I was hoping you could start from the beginning and talk about your story and how
sure.
you become a CEO in the nonprofit sector for many years and kind of what you've had to overcome and kind of the obstacles and barriers you've had.
Sure. So I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. A lot of people, you know, when your whole name is Thomas Joseph Patrick Egan, and then I show up and they're like,
yeah.
you know, I'm not seeing Irish Catholic in that name. No one ever knows what I am. My mother was born and raised in Tokyo, Japanese, and my dad's Irish. So, you know, you start mixing stuff together and you know, this is what happens. So it was a great place to grow up. My parents got divorced at a fairly young age, and there's an additional twist of my mom not only being an immigrant, but she's deaf. So being, you know, 12, 13 years old, and you get thrown into, and you know a lot of this stuff, you're a parentified adult. I mean, you grow up quick. And then there's a lot of pressure and stress to that. I don't think I handled that particularly real well growing up. I did the things I had to do, but I probably acted out and resented it, and started getting a lot of trouble in the community that we were in, and it was just it was kind of a rough time. You know, my mom not being from here doesn't really know what the laws and rules are, and she's deaf. So if I got in trouble with local police, you know, they send people to the door. And guess who's interpreting for them? I am. So I would think of, how do I explain what they're saying where I get a reaction from her face, but also kind of tone down what they're trying to say? And they were basically trying to do, you know, scared straight with me. You know, at some point, just all these things that I found myself in, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I had a good base, I had a good family. Where I just eventually realized, like, I got to get out of here, or my friends are going to take me down with them. Some of the things that we're, you know, getting in trouble on. So I didn't even look at colleges that were within 5 hours of home. I knew I had to get out of here, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I needed to change. Okay. So making that shift, I think, was really important for me. And then, you know, going somewhere else and just trying to reinvent yourself. You know, you and I have joked about this. I am Catholic. I grew up Catholic. Okay, I maybe did not some great things up till probably age 25 of my life. How do I offset that other side of the ledger? Yeah. And I really have just set out of my entire career has been purposely nonprofit. I want to help as many people as I can in the time I have, you know, in my life. Try to balance that out. So if I got to go face St. Peter and he's looking at, oh, you know, I see a lot of bad stuff on this side of the ledger. I'm like, yeah, but look, I helped a whole lot of people for a couple decades. Like, some of that's got to balance out, right?
Yeah. So how did you get out of Buffalo? You played football, right? Is that?
I tried. I never lettered.
Okay.
I never lettered in it. I just looked at any school that would even give me a chance to as a scholarship. That was sort of my out. Mm-hmm. you know, when you're really good in your community, and then you go to Division I school and you realize, oh, everyone's fast. You know, it's one thing to be the fastest kid in the community. Yeah. It's a different thing to be the fastest kid in several states. Okay. You know, where all of a sudden that doesn't help, and I was fearless because I didn't care. I was the kid who I didn't think I'd live past 25 at that point in my life. So my body's all messed up from just being a battering ram.
Yeah. But it was a release, though, I'm sure.
That was it was, yeah. So that was that you know, especially playing defense, like that violence part of I can hit somebody and that's encouraged.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So your mom, did she work too, or where did you get that? You obviously went on a line and said, I got to apply to all these places and figure out a way to get out. Yeah. How did you learn, or where did you get that example of just figuring out, or is it just simply the notion I have to go?
I just knew I had to go. My mom didn't go to college, obviously. She had amazing work ethic. You know, coming here, not having the culture, having a disability, she worked making men's suits. You know, that she was a seamstress. She could sew, she used that, and she just put her head down and she just worked all the time. So I think I learned a lot of that from her, but I was the first person to go to college in my family. So I don't know that I really had anyone encouraging me to do that. My grandmother was probably the closest, where she really valued education. She's like, I will help you, and she didn't have a lot of money, but you know, as a child of the Depression, she was a saver, and she helped me with some of that, and I did the rest on loans. It took me 16 years to pay off all my student loans, but it was worth it. It got me out, got me away. So
tell us how you got to Arizona and that kind of process.
So after college, I was working with the seriously mentally ill, homeless in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm driving home from work one day, and it's Cinco de Mayo, which in Cleveland is just May 5th. And there's a turn on the I-90 in Cleveland. They call it Dead Man's Curve because it just literally does like a 90-degree angle on a freeway. It's a brilliant design. And it's snowing on May 5th. And I'm like, this is why does anyone live here? This is terrible. And Buffalo's the same way, same weather. So I'd grown up with it my whole life, and I'd pretty much decided I want to go anywhere where I never have to see snow again. So I went all around the country, anywhere where I had one friend that I could go visit and look around, and I got to Arizona, and it's beautiful, it's clean weather. And I mean, back in the late 90s when I moved, there were so many jobs. So there were plenty of opportunities, great weather. I'll never see snow again. That's
Rest is history.
That's it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so what was kind of your and we'll talk about FSL here in a second, but what was your first job here, and how did you get to FSL?
So as you mentioned, I went to college. I thought, again, I just wanted to help people. You know, that was what I decided to do, and I became a marriage counselor, and I didn't last very long at doing that. I'm in it. I'm trying harder to save people's marriages than they are. And I'm like, I can't see myself doing this in 5 years and 10 years. So I get out here, and when I was in Cleveland, I started to get some management experience working with the homeless. And I'm like, okay, I can still help people from the administrative side, the behind the scenes. I'm good at this. I wasn't trained to do it. I just sort of, found that I liked it better. And it still scratched that itch for me that I was helping people, but I was maybe another step removed from it. So I got a job with what was at the time Catholic Social Service. Was running some child welfare programs, and I just kind of evolved a niche of, if there was a program that wasn't doing well, maybe financially or programmatically, they'd just give it to Tom. Either fix it or close it. And I just kept fixing them. So I didn't realize that no one, it was a sink or swim. I just got dropped in and just figure it out. And I'm a lifetime learner, so I would go and pull things from people I know or books that I would read, and just try to figure out how to fix these things again, just so we could serve more people. So I got good at that, and then career just kind of evolved. And
yeah. So we've had April Rhodes, who's also a marriage and family therapist from Spectrum, was on an early episode of the show.
Okay.
And almost eerily similar things that she went through. She started off just wanting to help people, same thing. And so I think there's a string here that folks are tuning into this and listening to. People jump in, they learn that there's a need, they figure out how to service that need, and next thing people see them as a leader and say, hey, can you take this on as well?
Right.
And so I wanted to point that out because it's a very similar type of story. Social services, there's not a lot of business training in social services or healthcare in general, and so you jump in and just figure it out.
Well, and you got to go find it.
Yeah.
You got to find it. That's I try to surround myself with people who I can learn things from and pick up different business aspects. It can be really rewarding work. I have a lot of friends that work in the for-profit sector. They make a ton of money and they hate their jobs. There is no fulfillment there.
Okay.
It is really easy to get up every day and go to work when when I get to help people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say there's not difficult times. It is hard, but there's a sense of fulfillment. There's purpose there, and that's.
It's one of the best things when you get one of your clients or patients, however you want to call them, in your company, that sends a letter how you help change their life. I don't think there's anything more fulfilling than that.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. Okay, so let's talk about FSL.
Sure.
So tell me about FSL. What is FSL? What are you guys doing?
FSL is a charitable nonprofit organization in Arizona. The easiest way to explain FSL is we develop affordable housing around the state of Arizona, and we provide community-based health and community services. So really for us, everything is how do we help a person maintain their independence, maintain their dignity, what programs and services can we provide to them to help them achieve that goal. And there's 25 different programs that we deploy to meet those different needs.
You guys have grown tremendously over your tenure since you've been there. And
yeah, I mean, I think Business Journal has us as the 5th largest healthcare nonprofit in Arizona. We've got 5 different affordable housing communities we're building around the state that are in some phase of development.
And there's obviously a big trend towards aging and boomers in our country and things that are going to affect our country. So how are you guys addressing that, and what are kind of your big vision items for FSL to help really affect people who are aging and their loved ones who are going to either be caregivers or we led with that quote, so
right.
I know you're very passionate about that as well.
I am. Well, it's a staggering geographic shift that we're going to have. We talk about 10,000 people turning 65 every day for I think it's 15 more years, and when somebody's first turning 65, they might not need some of our services at that point. But when you just keep having that year after year after year, it's really a staggering amount. So for us, if we can engage with those people and you start to look at, okay, how do we help you age in place? Most people say they want to stay in their own home. They don't want to go into assisted living or nursing home or some care facility like that. So how do you start thinking about that? If you're in a 2-story home and all the bedrooms are on the 2nd floor, is that really the home that you're going to age in? And maybe at 75 or 85, we're living longer. So we got to look at the health and safety of the home, start to make some of those decisions. Are there trip and fall hazards that as your balance, your mobility change as you're getting older? You've really got to look at that whole physical environment. Is the person still able to provide for all their own care? Do they have social networks? We see a lot of times with people that are aging, they retire, and if their whole world was defined by work and they start to isolate themselves, their health will go down very quickly. Can the individual still provide their own meals, or are they going to need some assistance with that? Transportation, until Waymo figures out driverless cars, we are still a car society, and can you still provide that transportation? Do you have those social networks? So we really try to take a holistic look at the person and find out what those needs are and what services, whether it's something we can provide or somebody else in the community, and we try to play that connector role.
Sure. So folks watching this who don't really understand vulnerable populations, I know FSL is an Arizona charitable tax credit organization,
Yeah.
and I know your passion is really helping sometimes the person who doesn't have anything. Can you give an example of an aging individual who may use some of your services, or do you have a story of someone you could share so that folks watching this can be inspired and may want to go online and actually contribute and donate to FSL
Sure.
and the cause?
Yeah. When I look at, sort of one of our signature programs are the Adult Day Health Services, and what Adult Days are, it's a medical model. So all the patients that we're seeing in the facilities, we have one in the East Valley, one in Phoenix, one in Glendale, and the West Valley, are coming to a day program, and they're probably still living at home with their family. Most often the family is working, they're caregiving, And then after, that sort of second shift of now I have to provide care for my mom, my dad, my spouse, whoever it is. A lot of times they still have kids at home, so that's a tremendous burden on that family. To be able to have a safe place for their loved one to go. There was a situation I can think of with a young couple. There's a young man we provide services for where he was hit by a drunk driver, has a traumatic brain injury. His wife works full time. He's just sitting at home watching TV all day. And she comes home from work, she's exhausted, and he just wants to do things, he wants to engage because he doesn't have anything outside the home. The change in their family that she talks about, of having a safe place for him to go during the day, be involved with activities, have nursing and medical personnel available to provide for his care. There's healthy meals, activities, socialization, all those wonderful things that he has really just become himself again, and he has a life of his own. It's strengthening their marriage. So a lot of times when I look at it, we have two clients. You have the person who's receiving the health care service, and then their caregiver who's getting that respite or a break that we're able to provide. So the vast majority of people that we're going to take care of are lower income. So we really rely on charitable donations from the community to offset some of those services. We get a lot of contracts and services with government entities, and the funding it's not there to provide the quality level of services that we want to provide. So having individuals be able to take advantage of the Arizona Charitable Tax Credit is tremendous for us. There's a wide variety of organizations you can support in that. But what I'm finding is aging, if you will, is not always someone's first cause. It's easy to raise money for kids and puppies. You start talking about aging services, we talked about the demographics of our country. When that impacts your life, all of a sudden it becomes real and it becomes your cause. If you're having to deal with aging parents, aging spouse, a child with a disability, you start to understand what FSL is doing, and I think more and more people are supporting us because of that.
Yeah, I think I was reading about one of the largest epidemics facing our country is the aging population and dementia, and what that cost is going to do to civilization in general with caregiving, medical cost, just the human cost overall. It's one of those things we just really aren't recognizing as of right now, but we will, and it will be one of the largest costs that we have in the United States in the next 10 to 15 years.
When I go to our 3 adult day centers, I basically see 3 populations. I see young adults with traumatic brain injuries. I see early onset memory disorders, people who are in their 40s having early onset dementias, as you mentioned. And then your over 65, multiple chronic conditions, really just effects of aging.
Wow.
So people who have a lot of healthcare issues. So, going to a senior center, that's not going to be the level of care that person needs. So, an adult day that has professional medical staff is really the appropriate level of care. And then again, to your point about cost, we try to price that where it's half the cost of bringing a caregiver into your home, again, to be able to make it affordable for people to provide for their loved ones. It's going to be a crisis in our country, and it's getting harder to find caregivers.
So if people want to learn more about FSL, where can they go to learn more about FSL?
The easiest way to learn more about us is go to our website, fsl.org.
Awesome. So switching gears, so let's talk a little bit more about Tom's mentality. And so you were thrown into different roles and have become CEO of the 5th largest nonprofit now in Arizona. What has been the biggest obstacle or barrier you've had outside of you in your youth, right, as in your professional career, of transitioning from that maybe marital family therapist to now the CEO, or has it been while at FSL? Can you talk a little bit about your biggest obstacle and barrier?
Well, I think early on, I was always the youngest supervisor, the youngest director, and sometimes when you're the youngest person at the table, no one takes you seriously. And then I don't have the educational background that maybe some people want to see. I remember having a boss say, it's like, oh, you should really go back and get your MBA. And when I was looking around the community of who do I admire, who's leading nonprofits in this community, and let me go pick their brain on what does it take to be a leader of a nonprofit. And I was like, no, it's not about an MBA, it's these other skills that you need to develop. So I really set out to gain those skills in more of an informal manner, or what I could do. And that was, I think, probably the most helpful for me. The most challenging time, back when you got to the recession, I was at a point where I was, probably one of 5 senior directors at an organization, and we had to lay off 25% of our staff. It's going to be a couple hundred people. We were going to go from 600 and some on staff down to 4. And instead of 5 of us at my level, there was going to be 1. And that is a really difficult thing to do. You start thinking about, and it's nothing that the staff did, it's nothing that the clients did, it's not that you're not worthy of service. We don't have the money to provide this. Contracts are ending, just going from just cut to 0. It's just a line item that got wiped out on the budget. And you start having to look at things of how are we going to scale down this organization. That was a tremendously stressful time, a difficult time, and I think organizations have all come through that, but really difficult time to go through.
How did you overcome it, or how did you at least try to figure out a way to make it palatable for you and the rest of the staff and the staff members who obviously were being affected?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I always try to look at is, if we don't provide this service, are there things that we need to hold on to because we are the best person to provide this? Are we the only person who will take on this cause or special population? And are there other services where, okay, if we got out of this one, maybe there are other people who are going to pick it up, or there's another service that they're going to be able to benefit from. So really trying to pare it down that way. But that was, I think, how I got through it, and then really starting to look at, okay, how do we diversify away from some government funding? That was probably around the time when I was the person who complained the most about our development and fundraising efforts, and my CEO said, then you take it. Okay. It's like, fine, I will take it over, and we will come up with a plan, and we're going to start raising more private dollars, flexible dollars, that we can try to launch some new initiatives and try to do some of the things that we had to close. We'll bring back in a different way with dollars that are a little more flexible than a government contract.
Okay. So as you progress through the organizations, and maybe it's being CEO of FSL or your previous roles, what was the biggest aha moment for you where you're like, I've really made it, or this really now makes sense? I feel like I'm in a place where this is working and I understand what I'm here to do.
So I think there was a point where I was still, I had this goal. I wanted to be running a nonprofit before I was 40, and I'm implementing the CEO's vision at the organization I work at, and I hit a point of some of the things you want to do are not what I think is right. I need to stop implementing somebody else's vision. I need to go implement my own. One of the biggest things I think we just disagreed on was his thought of chasing contracts. Like, we should just, if there's money to be made in it, we should do that service. That doesn't make sense to me in a nonprofit. Not that everything has to make money, but what are the things that you're really good at, you're really passionate about, and they drive your resource engine? Just, I'm a big Jim Collins fan, and just to look at those 3 things, not just chase contracts and money and start to get mission drift. That doesn't make sense to me. So once I had kind of made that
hedgehog concept, right? Isn't that
basically the hedgehog concept? Basically, once I had kind of gathered that, and I had opened my mind up to, recruiters would always call and ask me about things, and I was loyal. I wanted to be at the company. And I just hit this moment of, like, next time somebody calls, I need to at least listen. I need to start listening when people call. And an opportunity was presented to me, and I'm like, okay, I can go implement the vision. I can figure out how do we go deeper and get better at something rather than wider.
Sure, okay. So what advice would you give to somebody? So somebody watching this, listening to this, here's your story, may have had a troubling upbringing, or may have recently had a tough time themselves and really wants to set out to help others and give back and potentially be involved in a non-for-profit where they can really see their impact, help people. What advice would you give them?
I got a lot of great advice coming up. So the first part is finding mentors, finding people that, like I did, where I looked around the community and I was like, okay, that's the job I want to do. Who do I think is doing it well? And I need to go pick their brain and figure out how they do this, how did they get there, what skills do they think it takes to be in that chair. And then a gentleman that I was friends with gave me the best advice I've ever had in my career. I said, you sit on a lot of boards. What are you looking for in that CEO? And he said, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. He goes, go get yourself on a board of directors of a small nonprofit. Sit on the other side of the table. Everything they do that pisses you off, don't do that when you're in charge.
That's good.
I'm like,
Simple.
okay. So I found a startup nonprofit, and I went and sat on the board, and just all the things that I was like, why are you doing it this way? And I just tucked all those little nuggets away. And I still, to this day, I always make sure I serve on at least one nonprofit board. I think I can help. I've developed some skills in this area, so I feel like I can give back in that way. But then also to put myself on the other side of the table from that board of directors of, am I doing things that are making it difficult for my board of directors to provide us, their best?
Okay.
So really just trying to keep myself balanced that way. But it was really the best advice.
That's a great nugget. That is a great nugget. I know what our meme is going to be for this episode. Okay. Well, we unfortunately have to wrap up, Tom, and I asked people 3 closing questions.
Sure.
So it's kind of a lightning round of questions. So what are you most proud of?
Being a dad. I have one son now, and I mentioned my dad wasn't always around, so I probably overcompensate by being at every soccer practice, trying to be at every game. It's going to take a lot for me to miss something because I didn't have that. So hopefully he doesn't get annoyed with me as he gets older, but I think he'll appreciate it.
Yeah, he'll appreciate it. It's older for sure. Who inspires you?
My team. I have this, that axiom of hire people smarter than you and you'll make you look really good. I have this great team who are just so passionate about the mission. They really just bleed the mission of FSL every day, and it makes it really easy to accomplish great things when you surround yourself with people who are just smarter than you.
Well, so you've grown FSL. It's now a very large nonprofit. You've accomplished a lot as a CEO there. What motivates you now every day to get out of bed and continue that mission?
You know what's really exciting, and you understand this more than most, especially in the healthcare system and behavioral health and social services, we're starting to talk about social determinants and realizing that is going to have a bigger influence on people's health. And that's our strength. We've been talking about this for decades. So I feel like we're going to be positioned well for when there are, the health insurers, the hospitals, the systems in general are starting to realize there are these other things that we can do to make an improvement on someone's health. So, if your insurance company, stop asking me about what code we can bill this under. Yeah. Let's talk about what outcome are you trying to get and what can we build and put in place to help you bend that cost curve.
It's the whole saying now that it's your zip code is more of an important factor than your genetic code for your overall health and wellness. Yeah.
So I just think we're positioned well for the future to be able to be at the table and play a role in that space.
Awesome. Well, Tom, you guys are doing important work. Thank you for your relentless pursuit of really helping the aging population, the vulnerable population, and all the things you do at FSL. I appreciate our friendship, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw today, please subscribe in the links below. And remember, never to quit, always be relentless.